Hello, everybody. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be going over some of the new announcements for preseason, Season 10, 2020. So, Riot just released this a couple of days ago. I talked about it on stream, but I keep getting asked a bunch of different questions, so I'm just going to go ahead and address those here and just talk about as much as I can and my thoughts on it. Overall, I think that it is going to be pretty good changes for League. I like probably about 90% of what's going on. But I will be talking about why, what I think is going to happen, and what I think this means for League sort of going forward. So keep in mind, this is very speculative. If you're watching this in the future, we do not have a lot of numbers specifically for some of these changes, but we will be getting those as the preseason rolls out. And I'm not sure that all of these are going to happen right away in the preseason. They might roll them out slowly, so we'll see. As far as the other stuff, I'm not going to talk about all of their other ventures much. I'll talk about it here just really briefly at the beginning, but a lot of those are very speculative. They don't even have like a beta going or anything for stuff like the card game seems like the newest one they're going to come out with, but they're also working on a shooter. They're also working on a potential like Diablo style RPG. They're working on a fighter and all of that kind of stuff. So we just don't have a lot of details for those yet. I will say that I think the most successful ventures that they're going to have, most likely, that will have like some decent staying power, will be the animated series, because not a lot of other content creators are doing that. I think this is kind of like Riot's foray into Blizzard-like, sort of trying to dip their toe in a bunch of different genres. I wish they would do one game at a time instead of trying to do 5 or 6 at a time. You know, they've hired a bunch of different teams for each one, so I don't think that they are cannibalizing the work of other things. So I don't think this is the end of League. I don't think that they're giving up on League just because they do all these other ventures, right? It's very clear they're trying to do a lot of changes to League. So anyone that says, oh, League's dead, they're moving on to a fighter game. No. Those are just kind of sideshow things that are going to be interesting. And if they get popular, sure, they're going to support them a little bit more. But I think there's plenty of room. They have really deep pockets, you know. They make a ton of money off the game, and they have Tencent backing them, which is one of the best Chinese media companies out there. So I think it's going to continue to get support. But I think the animated series is very unique. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I've talked about that for years now when people have asked what could they do that'd be good for League. I think integrating it in with more lore and content like that is going to be great, because they can like introduce characters, they can hype up certain storylines before they ever show up on League. They can do like events where like a new set of episodes will drop, like new 10 episodes themed around a certain season, and then they could release, you know, like a League bundle or patch or whatever with some of the new skins, or some new, like a new champion themed around whatever's going to be going on in the animated series at the time. So I think there's a ton of crossover potential. They could definitely bring in a new audience and give people a way to keep League fresh and interesting, even for people who don't go hard on ranked. And I think this is something they've needed to do for a long time, is to make it more compelling for casual people that just want to enjoy the game. And I think that lore adds a lot of extra depth and a lot of enjoyment, is now people can come in and just see something cool, you know, in the animated series, and then do, you know, just go play that character in League. It'd be really sweet if they had like a special themed map around some of the lore that was going on. So like the Odyssey thing, where you had Jinx and Malphite and some of those other people, and you had that special map that you could fight on, and there was like a very simple story that goes with it. Like if they did something like that around the animated series, that'd be awesome. They said they weren't going to do as many sort of limited time maps like that, but if the animated series is really popular, I think they should reconsider and do like a seasonal animated series with a seasonal map, and a series of skins that get released maybe over. So like if a season was maybe 3 months, they release 10 episodes of anime over 3 months, and then they might even just release fewer than that. They could release 5 or something, but just release, you know, like 10 episodes, have it themed around a certain quarter, you know, like January through March. During that time, they run a special on, they like introduce new skins, maybe in 1 month installments. So like 1 month they release a certain set of skins, you get certain discounts on skins, and then another month they do the same thing that's all related to the story. And then maybe they release a new champion as well, either early on in that cycle or at the very end of the cycle. But that would give you 4 new champion releases a year, 4 specially themed quarterly events with themed skins around that, and they could have a special map for each one of those things as well that's playable only during that quarter. I think that would be a really good way to integrate the animated series with the game, bring in the lore, bring everybody together. I think that'd be really fun. If they don't do it quarterly, maybe semi-annually. I think quarterly's probably doable. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to release and make all of those things. Like I said, maybe they have to release 5 episodes a quarter and then 10 sort of annually. But just something like that where it's systematic, it's themed, the skins, the map, the animated series, League itself, all of that's kind of themed around this casual stuff in the same way that it's themed around the professional scene, having these different splits. So I like that idea a lot. Some of the other stuff, like the mobile league, I don't think is going to cannibalize real league players that much. You know, people that are like really on the casual end that just want to play some stuff, it could be okay, just the mobile game type of crowd, but I don't think it's going to pull core audience league people away. So that's kind of whatever. Fighter game, you know, it's hard to speculate. Fighters are usually not that popular as far as like the scene and like viewership and pro scene and stuff like that. It's a very niche audience. I guess that's okay. That's interesting. The Diablo style game, I think that could be really cool. I've liked the idea of an MMO, but an MMO is very expensive to manage. Something like there's just really not much room to compete with World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. That genre is just very, very difficult to get into. It's super expensive. The subscription model is very hard to maintain in this day and age. So maybe going on something that's Diablo style, and if they could sync that up with the animated series and with League, where people can go in and explore like a certain landscape and try to meet certain objectives and do some cool stuff, and it's themed like quarterly, where they release like new patches every quarter that brings you new content or shakes up the content in some way. I think that has a lot of potential, where people can go in, interact with the world, interact with the lore. I'm not sure how much, you know, development that would take to do those things, but Blizzard does stuff like that, you know, where they have themed World of Warcraft events around like Christmas and stuff like that. So I think it's totally possible to do it. Once again, it's quarterly ambitious. Maybe it's a little ambitious. It depends on how much they want to do. But I do like the idea. And then you could have crossover from that. So, like, you know, if you watch the animated series, then maybe you'll have a skin that's related to a character that's in the animated series. Maybe if you are achieve certain things in League, like you buy a pass for League of Legends, or you are a certain rank, or something like that, you have some other kind of accolade, then maybe that would transfer over to the casual game. So like maybe you would get a special flare on your armor or something like that. Or if you play the Diablo style game and you meet certain objectives, maybe that would have something to do with League. Maybe you get access to a certain skin. I don't know about gating cosmetics and stuff, like you can only get the skin if you play the other game, that type of stuff. But I think that would be interesting. I personally don't think that would be too unfair. It would just incentivize people that want to do that, as long as it's not pay to play. But I think there's a lot of potential to create an ecosystem between different types of genres for different types of people to explore the lore and make League really viable. So I think those 3 things, primary League, animated series, Diablo-style MMO, I think that sounds really good. Fighters kind of off in left field. You know, I don't suspect it'll be that successful, but maybe. I don't know the details. The shooter feels a little weird. It's Overwatch-esque, basically. If they can make it cool and interesting and different in some ways, maybe that can work. Shooters are very popular, but that's a very crowded space, too. You got to compete with Overwatch primarily in the same type of genre. It looked like they were previewing there. Then, of course, you also still have Fortnite, PUBG, Rainbow Siege 6, all this stuff. A lot of the top 10 games that are viewed are going to be shooters a lot of the time, so it's a really crowded space. I don't know. And frankly, I don't remember what the other ones were. There were just like a million different... Oh, the card game. It'll be niche. I don't expect a lot out of the card game, just like TFT. It's interesting. It's niche. I don't think in the long term it's going to appeal to a mass audience, but it will have some devoted fans that will enjoy it. You know, once again, there is some crossover potential there. You're not exploring the land itself in the way you would with an animated series in a Diablo style. You're getting like some lore, but it's just primarily like text and maybe some card graphic stuff. So it could be cool, but I don't think it has as much potential as other things. People will try it out. It'll be interesting. I mean, if it's a really good card game, it could work. But it's competing with Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, which I think is the supreme card game. It's just too expensive for a lot of people. But anyways, I know I said I wouldn't talk a lot about those other things, but here I am talking about them. But yeah, so I think it's got a lot of potential. The newest things, I think the animated series is coming out pretty soon. You know, I'll do a video. I'll talk about that if people want to see it on the channel. I think that would be cool. And then the card game I think is already in beta and they're testing that out. So, maybe I could check that out too. But we'll see. Anyways, let's talk about Summoner's Rift here. So, I think overall, I like the direction of stuff. I think they're doing a bit too much. I wish they'd focus on the Diablo-style MMO and the animated series more. But as long as it's not slowing down those projects, if they're just kind of doing a slow burn on the other things, just, throwing a few dollars there every now and then, I guess that's fine. Okay. So let's talk about the changes to Summoner's Rift that are coming up. And so, overall, I do think this is a net positive for League. I don't think it's going to take stuff away from League. I don't think it's going to cannibalize. In fact, if they change a couple of systems in League, I think it actually could bring more people to League. Because then you'll have people that watch the animated series, think it's cool, then they want to play it. Or they'll play the MMO. They'll say, oh, that's really cool. I want to go fight on League of Legends and check that out. So I think it has the potential to bring in new people, more so than take people away from League, because once you get people in that ecosystem, then it's more likely they're going to try out your other products as well, if it's managed well. The main thing I think that holds people back, and I'll just mention this really quickly because I didn't see anything about this, but I think they need to make League more accessible. They've tried to do that with the Rune system overhaul, which I think was a big success. People have critiqued the runes primarily from a gameplay perspective. They're like, oh, the runes are too powerful, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's basically power neutral to how the old runes used to be. The old masteries and runes combined, it's a similar level of power as it used to be. The big thing, though, is people don't have to spend 200,000 blue essence now to get all of their rune pages and get all of their runes. I came up in Season 1 and beyond, and it took years. I don't think I had all of the runes that I wanted and all of the champions for like 5 or 6 years of most seasons consistently playing League, like hundreds of games, if not 1,000 games a season. I think most games before I was streaming, most seasons I was probably playing between 500 to 1,000 games, a couple of games a day, 2 or 3 games a day. And I still didn't have everything for like 5 years. So that is way, way too long for a lot of people. Now, back in the day, in 2009, 2010, the game came out, that was acceptable because there just were not many free games. There was no competition. You're offering something for free. So, just allowing people to get it really slowly was fine. But now in 2019, most games give you everything right away. You want to go play Overwatch? You get everything right away. You don't have to level up. You don't have to buy champions. Nothing. You get it all right away as soon as you sign up. Fortnite, you just plug and play with your friend. There's no leveling. You don't have to buy any extra stuff for your champion. You just have it immediately and go. Even Dota, I'm pretty sure, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm pretty sure with Dota, you just get it, you have all the heroes immediately. You don't have to buy any of them. Yeah, now, you might have a little trial period. You don't have to level up either, but there might be a little trial period where you have to play like 20 games normal before you can play ranked. I like that idea just to make people play some of the game before they jump right in and ruin ranked games, potentially while they're trying to learn. I like that idea. But the whole concept of someone having to drop 40 or 50 hours to level up from level 1 to 30, where the game quality is terrible, you're playing against a bunch of Smurfs, or you're playing against people that have been banned for bad behavior, or you're just playing against bots that are trying to level up accounts to sell them. Not playing against bots, but playing against actual AI programs that are like in your games, because it's not going to be heavily monitored, because who cares? It's just the leveling process. And it just feels like garbage. You don't have access to all the summoners. You don't have access to all the runes until you level up. It's like, do you really need to be level 12? Do you really have to play, like, 20 games of League of Legends before you understand what Flash does? I mean, I don't like that system at all. I understand back in the day why they had it. They wanted people to feel a level of power progression as you got more mastery points. It's like the old school Diablo mindset, the old school World of Warcraft mindset where you're gaining power as you gain more experience. The problem is with those games, you're learning your characters, you're learning rotations, you're going around, you're exploring the world, you're doing stuff, you're checking out different scenarios, and it feels like it's, an RPG type of element of leveling up. League is not an RPG, right? You get it, it's a competitive game. Every time you log back in, it's the same game, it's the same terrain. It's going to play out a little bit differently, but you're not exploring a lot of stuff, right? That kind of fit thematically with gaining these skills. You're not going on quests and things like that. So I just think it doesn't make sense in 2019 to level from 0 to 30. And I definitely don't think it makes sense to have to, now if there's like 150 champions, to save up forever to get it. So just ditch the leveling and just give people all of the champions, or a significant amount of the champions. And I think they'll still make more money doing that because there will be less people that'll be turned off. More people will be willing to give the game a shot because there are so many people that just show up. They're like, what? I don't have any champions. I start at level 1. It's going to take me like 40 hours to level this up. Screw this. I'm going to play Fortnite. Like, that's how most people think, especially kind of the younger crowd that want that, instant gratification. And so I think they would still make a lot of money because you know what? When you give people a free champion, they try it out, they have fun with it. What do? They buy skins for it. Okay? So, there's just going to be people that spend money and there's going to be people that don't spend money in the game. And that's just how it is, right? Like forcing people arbitrarily to not have all these champions is not going to make it more likely they're going to buy champions. There are some people, yes, that will, but those same people will also be likely to buy your season pass if they stay in the game, or they'll buy your skins. Like there's other ways you can monetize, or they'll watch your animated series because they've played the game, they like the game, they'll watch the animated series, or they'll watch the RPG, or they'll go play the fighter game, or just get them in your ecosystem. So I'm hoping that, as they change that, I have no personal skin in the game. I have every champion. I don't care from a personal perspective. It's fine. I'm just saying for other players, for new players, I know that this sucks. I've tried to level up a Smurf. I couldn't even get it past like level 18 or something. I was like, this is just a waste of time. Because I wanted to have an alt just in case I had a 30-minute dodge on stream so I could just play something else. Now I just go play on the PvE because it's not worth leveling up an alt if that happens. So I hope they do that. I hope they give away all the champs. And I hope that they just get rid of the level 30 process. And I know there'll be people that are crying saying, oh, I spent all my blue essence on champions and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, man, that's fine. But look, we need the game to grow. We need new people in it. What they did last time when they gave away all the runes is if you bought anything, I think in the last year or something, they gave you like some blue essence or RP or something or other. But either way, they need to do that. They need to either significantly reduce the price of the champions by a lot, like 50% off of every champion, or they need to just give them away and get rid of the leveling system. They need to do like at least one of those things, if not both of them. Anyways, so I hope they do that, especially now that they're going to have a broader ecosystem. I think that will help out with their monetization, and it'll help bring in new players a lot more. Okay, elemental rifts. This is one thing, so sorry, I know that was like a 15-minute aside there, but I just want to talk overall. What do I think about them going like full Blizzard mode here, where they're trying to dip their toe into every genre? I think it's cool. I want to see how they go. As long as they don't go as money hungry as Blizzard has, and like the game quality doesn't drop, and I don't think it looks like it will based on what I've seen. I think they've managed TFT fairly well. I just don't think it's intended to be a really broad appeal game. People just like action and like live fighting and not strategy games as much. There is a strategy audience. I do cover Total War. It is fun. But even Total War has live action in it. And there's a reason that Total War, in general, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think that the Total War franchise is far more popular than the Paradox games in general because it does have real-time battles. People just like real-time fighting. So, anyways, Elemental Rifts. So this is one part about League that I have not liked. I have come to enjoy most of the changes they've made over the years. I've been a little hesitant about them, just like most people are over time. But I think in general, they've done a good job managing most things. Elemental Drakes is one thing that I really don't like about the game because it's random. It's RNG, and I just think adding RNG into a competitive game is bad. In general, that's just how I feel about it. And that's how they felt about it for a long time, That's why they got rid of dodge in the game. They kept critical strike, which was kind of weird back in the day. But they kept critical strike. They got rid of dodge though because they realized, if someone has that, 1% dodge chance rune like they used to have, and you miss that shot to kill them, it feels really bad. And they've gotten rid of. There were several other kind of random elements in the game too that they've gotten rid of. It's the same thing like with these elemental drakes, right? If you fall a little bit behind early, you lose priority in your lane, or even just in champ select. If you just pick losing lanes, mid lane, and bot lane, and they have, a superior early game jungle, and the early game Drake that spawns is Infernal, you're in big trouble. Like, if it's Wind Drake, it completely changes, like, the outlook of the game a lot of times, because, if they get that Wind Drake, it's not going to have as much of an impact as an Infernal later on. Yes, Wind Drake does allow rotations. Yes, it can be good, but nobody's going to tell you Wind Drake is better than Infernal. Infernal is unequivocally the best one because it's the stat stick. and that's what's powerful, in League. So, and they got rid of gold dragons because gold dragons were basically stat sticks. You killed it, you just got gold, that's it. But that was a much better equivalency to towers. You could say, okay, this dragon is worth the tower top lanes. You just trade dragon for top, it's fine. But now you don't know if you can do that, right? You can't build a comp around that. This is specifically more important for pro. But I think it would even matter in most normal games of League of Legends to some extent, right? At least strategically when the game plays out. Now, maybe not in Champion Select, but, in general, like, you could count on that. You could say, okay, we can give up team fighting and dragon if we have better split pushing or, like, a better 1v1 top laner who can, like, take ignite and bully the lane, then we can just trade top tower for dragon, no problem. But now, sometimes it's not worth it. The tower plates make it very difficult to take an entire tower, and the drakes are so easy to kill early on that getting the Infernal really has no answer in the early game. There is nothing else strategically you can do to match that. It's just whichever team is going to be able to get that is going to have a huge advantage as the game goes on. So I don't like it. I mean, a lot of people have said, I remember an interview, I think it was with Aniro on the old I'm a Cutie Pie show, Beyond the Rift, which I really liked. I wish he'd go back and do that some more with Skara, but I think it was just Skara went his separate ways and decided to do TFT instead of League and all that, but I don't know. Maybe Cutie Pie just got lazy with it. Either way, it was a good interview, and he said that he hated the Drakes, and he at least wanted it to show what the first Drake would be in Champion Select, so that you could try to build your team comp around it. That would help out some. But they're saying that they want to give like these new, fresh experiences so that, not every game feels the same. I don't think every game feels the same anyways. And they've done a 180, a past analogy that they've used in answer to this. People used to ask them, why don't you do multiple maps for League? So many other competitive games have multiple maps. Why don't we do it for League? And I think one of the developers said, well, football is always the same map, right? Basketball is always the same map. So if it's something that's competitive, then you want to take away as many random variables as possible and just allow people like perfect mastery of the game, so that everybody understands what to do, what the strategies are, and, what they're watching every year. Because if you're watching a basketball game, and they change it with the 3-point line in basketball, so the map does change sometimes, the map, But, like, if you watch a basketball game from the 90s and you watch a basketball game today, it's largely going to seem very similar, right? Someone, like, crosses someone over and dunks in their face. You're like, wow, that's a really cool play. Or, someone's getting double teamed and they pass out of it and shoot a game-winning three. It's like, okay, I understand that. It's good. Some of the rules also have changed in terms of hand checking and defense and, stuff like that. And in football, you've got, with the advent of concussions and stuff, a lot of defenses have changed. And so stuff does change. But their analogy was that stuff doesn't change very much from game to game. Certainly from season to season, in the middle of the season. It doesn't change. And so that's why they said they didn't want new maps. But now they're infusing all this RNG and they're doubling down on it with these Drakes. It's like, just do different maps. That way people know what it is. And this is what I think. Because then it's like, it's very obvious, like there's no RNG. You can practice it, you know what the different maps are. Just make it to where, like, every season or something like that, you have a standard Summoner's Rift map or whatever, but then you also have 2 or 3 seasonal maps. And you go into a random map. When you sign up for Ranked, there's a random map you're going into of this map pool of like 2 or 3 maps. So not like a million maps, but just a couple. That would add variety to it. I think it's something similar to what they do in Overwatch. Like, I don't think you get to choose what the map is or vote on it or something. I mean, maybe they could have something like that. I don't know. But just like make it separate maps so that you get variety, but you also get predictability. You know which strategies are good on these different maps. That would shake up the meta too, because there might be some maps where assassins are going to be better. There might be some maps where team fighting's better. Might be some maps where magic's better. You don't want it to be too lopsided or slanted, but just adding a little bit of that kind of stuff, especially if you add a fresh map in every now and then. Yes, it would take a little bit of tweaking in terms of balance and stuff like that. But I think that would be a better overall effect, because it would give you the variation without having the RNG. But anyways, so that's what I would recommend. But what they're doing now is they have these elemental drakes. Now, we don't know exactly what the different stats are. Creating new pathways through buff camps and burning away their brush. I thought it said that they were changing around some of the stuff. Anyways, let's look at this real quick. So now it affects the map. So this is only around the buffs, the red buffs and the blue buffs, I believe, in the Dragon Pit itself. So it's not the entire map. So there are certain flashpoints of additional conflict you can have. But there's this molten terrain where it kind of blows up this so that I guess you can cut in and out. The problem with this is these areas don't really matter that much in the late game, a little bit. But what matters is like the Baron Pit, you know, like this area, and maybe with Elder Dragon, the Dragon Pit. But like, I mean, okay, it gets rid of a couple of walls here. Like, I don't know what that's supposed to accomplish. I guess certain champions can run through it faster. But like, how do you play around that? Especially if you're not sure that like what the dragon's gonna be. Like, does that influence your choice in champion select? Is that really gonna influence your strategy and what you're doing? With the Infernal, probably not. Now, Ocean might be a little different, but once again, you don't know if this is actually gonna show up. But it spawns extra brush everywhere. Now, this is going to be particularly good, obviously, for someone like Rengar. Obviously, for someone like Ivern. This is going to be pretty good. Although, Ivern doesn't get the bonus attack range in brush anymore. But there will be, and like, certain types of assassins who can really, like, melee assassin, hard engaged champions, your Blitzcranks, your Nautiluses, anything that wants to get people out of bushes, this is obviously going to be good. So this one is a little more game-breaking. With the brush, and they dialed back the brush back in the day because they said too much brush was just giving too much advantage to assassins and melee champs, especially in the jungle. So that's why they trimmed all the brush, because back in the day the brush used to look almost exactly like this. It used to wrap around the whole top part of red, wrap around here. There were a bunch of places where there was more brush. I can't remember all of it right now, but and I don't know how long this lasts. And, like, what happens if you get multiple dragons, like 3 water dragons? Is the whole map just one big brush? I don't know. So, it's interesting. It's difficult to say exactly what's going to happen. It says honey, more honey fruits pop up so that you can heal more. So, once again, going to favor assassins who can one-shot people and then heal up afterwards. So, I don't know. That's kind of weird. Cloud Drake is the next one. So this gives like speed boost shrines basically. So if you run through here, I think you get a speed boost. Now I believe this only affects your team. Like this, the brush and this burn away stuff obviously is going to affect both teams. But this, I think, it says speeding up champions. That might be all players. I don't know. It's probably all players because the other 3 are all neutral, like for both teams. And then this one is creating extra terrain, which would favor, you know, like your veins and just anything that has a pin into terrain. So it's adding a little bit extra here. It just feels really like RNG, like it's just going to favor certain types of comps really heavily based on the types of just random dragons that you get. And like this could lead to some feels bads. Like maybe you don't want to get the Wind Dragon because they have such a good like flanking and rotation team. Because it affects both teams, so it's not even an advantage for you really. So like maybe you just don't want the Wind Dragon to ever die because you have a team fight team and they want to split and do a 1-3-1, but you're trying to team fight. So maybe you just protect the dragon without killing it? Like, some of this could be a really feels bad. Or maybe they have Rengar on their team. And you're like, well, we don't want to kill Water Drake because we don't want to give Rengar all those extra bushes. Like, that leads to a feels bad for something that should be a feels good. Like, you should, like, feel good about getting dragon. You're like, wow, you know, we got vision. We got priority in these lanes. Now we can go get this dragon. But, oh, crap, we don't want to get this dragon because they have a Rengar on their team and it's water. So that's just one of those situations where, like, an objective that you get that you have to really compete for should never feel bad. And that would feel bad, actively. Especially the brush one with Rengar. Then you could say, well, maybe you just ban Rengar every game, but you don't know if there's going to be a Water Drake or not. And there are other champions that abuse brush as well. I mean, anyone with Dustblade is going to like something like that, right? Because they go out of vision more often. I mean, there's a lot of... Any of those hook champions, like I mentioned, the Blitz, the Nautilus... just anything with like engage is gonna like more brush. So, and like champions that have a better time like checking brush, you know, some supports like Sona don't have ways to check brush really safely, or Janna, like it's hard to check brush versus other champions like Zyra can check brush very easily. So I don't know, it's interesting. I think it can dramatically warp what you're doing in the game and which comps are going to be effective, and you don't know about it in champion select. So I don't like it. I like the idea of switching the map up, but I would just make it different maps. Or even if they want to go as far as like changing, like when you show up to Summoner's Rift, the map itself is somehow, I don't know if I want to say that. I think that would still be too much RNG. Like the dragon just randomly spawns some like random place in the jungle, and just like the camps are shuffled around or something. Like, you know, maybe the raptors are up here one time and golems are down here, or I don't know. I just think that's too much RNG. I just don't think you need it. Like the game's already fine. Like why mess with it? So I would just do multiple maps instead. But this is what they're going with. We wanted to make sure elemental drakes are fair to both teams, regardless of whether one team is ahead on drakes. But they're not, for the reasons I just talked about, because it's going to depend a lot on team comp, especially the water drake with the brush. The other stuff is, I don't think the infernal matters. I mean, maybe some of the other ones matter, but I think that the water drake changes the map the most meaningfully, and the wind drake probably does. Keeping your head in the game if you fall behind early can be enough as is. We didn't want it to feel like the map itself was trying to make you lose too. That's exactly what you're doing. It doesn't do that right now. I never feel like, wow, the map is making me lose right now in traditional League of Legends. It's like maybe, but it's usually the enemies just out macroing me to different objectives. I mean, early on, yes, it is that way bottom lane because the dragons are on the bottom side of the map, and in the Rift Herald doesn't spawn until 10 minutes topside. They're changing that here in a second. But yeah, I think that this is going to exacerbate that problem, at least based on what I've seen here. So when creating new layouts for Rifts, we wanted to make sure each team would be as exciting and fair, but it's not, because there's huge bonuses to different types of teams. No, both teams don't have the opportunity to exploit and master a new terrain. Certain types of champs are better on certain terrains. You know, like Bard, Vayne, just all of these champions that want to pin people to walls are going to like the Earth Dragon a lot more. Rengar, any of the hook champions are going to like the brush more. Split push champions, you know, your Fioras, your Trendomirs, all that kind of stuff. They're going to like Windrake a lot more than Soraka is going to like Windrake. So it's not at all equal. Additionally, we wanted to ensure that risks feel intuitive even in your first game. I mean, yeah, they seem obvious. So no new gameplay mechanics, just changing that. Okay. Okay. So gain a percentage, attack, damage, and ability power. Okay, I think that's kind of what you already have. Oceanic, regenerate percentage, max health every second, or missing health every second. Hopefully it's in combat. If it's just out of combat, it's still going to be trash, although the bush buff, depending on your team comp, could be really good. Gain cooldown reduction for your ultimate with the Cloud Drake. Could be good. Once again, that's going to be a lot better on certain types of teams than others. But okay. And then Mountainous Vigor, gain a percentage increase in armor and magic resist. Once again, going to be better on certain teams than others. So if you have no tanks on your team, that doesn't matter. I mean, I think it's good to incentivize tanks, but that makes more sense than old Earth Drake, I suppose. A defensive one to go with the Infernal offensive one. So I don't mind this stuff, but it's like, that's kind of rough. When a team kills a fourth elemental drake, instead of stacking their elemental buff, they'll gain a powerful dragon soul from the dominant dragon. So whichever one you have the most of. So if you kill 4 drakes, then you start going off. Every 3 seconds, your next attack or damaging spell creates a small AoE explosion dealing adaptive damage which scales with stuff. Okay, that includes in combat. Yeah, that sounds very strong. Dealing any damage triggers strong health and resource regeneration for 3 seconds. And can work on minions. Okay. That seems really good. Hitting enemies with abilities or attacks lowers the cooldowns of your base abilities. And Mountain, after not taking damage for 5 seconds, gain a shield. But the shield's magnitude scales with bonus attack damage, ability power, and bonus health. So it's a defensive dragon that scales with offense. Okay. Anyways, okay, so it sounds like it's GG if you get 4 Drakes, probably. Which would be about the 25-minute mark. And that would encourage very heavy dragon control, so... I'm okay with that. I mean, usually right now in the game, if someone has 4 Drakes, they're likely going to win anyways, just because they're so far ahead in terms of macro. Not always, but I'm okay with that. That's cool. Once someone has the Dragon Soul, so once someone gets 4 dragons, then they defend the pit. Grants powerful short-term buff. Now, someone said that this doesn't come online until 35 minutes. I don't see that anywhere. It just says that there's an elemental dragon, or an elder dragon can spawn. So it could be as soon as, like, 25 minutes. If people get the dragon every minute on the minute. I guess it's 6 minutes per dragon, I think. I don't remember if it's 5 or 6. I think it's 6 on dragon and then 7 on baron, unless I'm misremembering that. But if it's 6 on dragon, that's 24 minutes. That is about 30 minutes into the game. So it probably will show up between 30 and 40 minutes. And I mean, this thing looks OP. If we click on this, basically if somebody gets to low health, then the dragon just executes them. Somebody asked about Karthus doing that. Seems like that would probably work with Karthus. So yeah, I mean, I think that it sounds really OP, but honestly, I would like for games to end, you know, if somebody gets one of these big objectives a lot of times. I mean, it's going to put less pressure on macro. So if your team's just bad at macro, but you're winning the game really hard, this is like the, you know, the nuclear button you can press just to end the game. If you've been up like 20 kills the whole game, but your team's hard throwing and you get Elder, I guess it could stop some comeback potentials. I'm indifferent. I'd say in 90% of my games, I don't even see Elder Dragon. The games are over by 30 minutes most of the time, with how fast the game is right now, and Dragon or Baron is a much more highly sought after buff. So I think that adding some extra power to Elemental Dragon to make it compete with Baron will make for some more interesting strategic choices across the map. Now it's not just because if you get Baron and they get Elder right now, you basically, it's a good trade on your part unless it's their second Elder. You know, it's Baron's almost always better. So I think that this is adding more reason to prioritize Elder, so I'm okay with it. Yes, it looks OP, but it's not going to show up all the time, I don't believe, and they may dial it back. But yeah, in general, I don't like executions. I don't like true damage. I think it bypasses a lot of the defensive mechanics in the game and can lead to some OP situations, but whatever, it's fine. It shows up in so few games anyways. Now, especially that one team has to have 4 dragons before it unlocks, like, that doesn't happen very often. You know, usually one team's going to sneak in a dragon or 2 between then. Like, 4 dragons, that means you have to consecutively get the dragon every 6 minutes on the dot and never give one up for any other objective. Like, if you're doing that, and you still have to fight for Elder. So just because you unlock the ability to get to Elder doesn't mean you're going to get it. So you have to get 4 consecutive dragons, or like 4 total dragons, I guess, in a row to unlock this. One team has to have it, not 4, from what I understand, right? One team has to have 4 when a team kills their 4th Drake. So if one team has 3, the other team has 3, there's no Drake coming in. So it's just like an extra kind of snowball mechanic. So because there has to be 4, and you have to fight for this and get it, you know, in order to get those 4 dragons, to make sure you get all of them, you're probably giving up some towers, you're giving up map pressure, you could be giving up a Baron to get the 4th one, potentially. You know, it's definitely a gambit to have to get all 4 of them. You have to have supreme control of the game, so I don't mind. It's like a 5-step process to get to, like, God mode, the 4 dragons, plus securing the Elder. I think by that point in the game, like I said, most people are going to be winning anyways if they have 4 dragons and an Elder. They probably are getting all the Barons. The towers are probably like 9-1. So I'm okay with it. It looks OP, but realistically, I think people are going to overreact to it and just think about, oh my god, that's crazy. But it's not really going to change win percentages. I don't think that much. Okay, side lane alcoves. Now, this sounds pretty dumb to me. So, I was looking at this the other day on stream. So, basically, you're getting like this little... Then they said it's not going to be a shop or anything. Like, some people speculated maybe it's like a Dota 2 shop where you could get like some potions or, something like that. It's not. It's just... It's kind of weird why they have this. They didn't say it was. They said it's just a place where people can go to fight. They just have a little graphic there for some reason. Which I don't know if that's going to create line of sight or what, but they just want there to be more outplay potential. But, like, who in their right mind is going to step back into this little death trap? Like, it's just dumb. Like, it would make more sense to me if they removed this bush, so they had an opening here, then they had a bush that wrapped all the way around here. Then there's a reason why you might try to sneak around here. If you're Blitzcrank and you enter the bush on this side, and then you wrap around and you get all the way over to this side, I could see that being strategically interesting. So if they have this warded and they see you come in here, then they could collapse and potentially kill you in the bush and you don't have any escape. So it would be risky to run through there, but that would be like a quick kind of sneaky passage you could go through if you wanted to stay out of line of sight to get from this bush all the way over to the other bush. So I think that would be interesting. That would force people to want to ward it more. But just like open terrain there, I just can't see any reason really why someone would want to go there. I mean, if you're getting ganked and you're trying to run away, I guess, and they're cutting you off and you can't quite get back to your tower... Maybe there's a clutch moment where if you're someone who can, like, jump over this wall or play around the line of sight, you're trying to kite their melee and you're just, like, running circles around them here, like, auto-attacking, juking, like, jumping across the walls. I mean, this is going to exacerbate the mobility creep problem even more. Like, champions that have mobility, things like Pyke, Rakan, stuff like that can jump over this wall are going to have an advantage around this type of stuff, and it's going to hurt your more traditional... immobile champions like your Ashes and things like that. So I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot to be gained off of that. I think it's very rarely going to be used. It's just kind of weird because it's right out in open sight. I mean, I guess if you have people pushed all the way in, someone could like come around here and hide, but why would you not just hide in this bush? Because if you're trying to sneak in this way and this bush is warded, they're going to see you anyways. So, I think it would be much more interesting if it was inverted, if this was bush and this was not bush. There's like a little open spot here. And if you wanted to try to get to that other side without being seen, you could try to sneak around. So we'll see. I don't think that's going to have that much of an impact. They're adding some new brush around the Baron and Dragon Pit. This is where most supports are going to ward anyways to protect these areas, so... I think that's fine. You can ward this corner bush. Ward this bush. This just feels really random because no one's just... I mean, there will be some stuff where you can line of sight somebody and get that last second on your ability before you hit them. Once again, favors melee, favors assassins. I think that ADCs, like ranged ADCs, already have it like pretty tough. So I don't know. I don't really like adding more brush, but I guess that's fine. So they say there's more stuff coming up. Okay, that doesn't matter that much. Jungle Path Diversity. So, yes, this is something a lot of junglers have talked about that's true. The side with Krugs is always stronger, and so that makes gives the blue side a huge advantage because you have access to red buff, which on most champions is going to be the stronger buff, especially in the early game. You have Krugs, which are the most XP and the most gold. And you have access to the bottom lane more often, which is the best lane to camp and gank because you get multiple kills, multiple plates, dragons, all that kind of stuff. So it just gives blue side a huge advantage. I also think that it's easier to wrap around. It's easier to control that tri-bush to shut out vision and to wrap around and gank on red side as well than it is on blue side. Like trying to wrap around on blue side... just takes a lot more motion and has to walk over more potential ward paths than the red side. Because if you look at... I don't guess we have a map here. But if you look at, the bot side where the famous tri-bush is, it's easy to put a control ward in there and control it if you're on that side of the map most of the time. And what the enemy has to do is they have to put a ward in that little river bush. But by the time the jungler wraps around through the try and comes through the river, if you're past the halfway mark in the lane, or if you're just like not ultra paying attention to the minimap, then you're probably going to get ganked anyways, right? Whereas if you're on the top side of the map, if you're coming through, you can blast plant over to get into that bush, which is nice, I suppose. But you're still kind of like it's harder to wrap around them. They still have that terrain there that's going to be pushed up a little bit further into the lane. It's just a lot harder to wrap around and get flanks if you're on that side of the map than it is vice versa. So I don't know. There's a lot of advantages to the blue side, especially for junglers. So what are they doing about this? Early jungler revolves around Krugs due to high golden XP. True. Pretty one-dimensional pathing. Yes. Heavy blue side advantage. Yes. Making XP and gold changes in order to open up more diverse options. Okay, so reducing Krug's value and buffing Gromps. Okay, perfect. Now people can actually go to the top side if they want. I've been saying that for a long time. A lot of junglers have. I think it should be symmetrical. I think that every camp in the jungle should have perhaps different sorts of traits. So good, like certain types of junglers are going to be good against single target for Gromp, or maybe they're better against Raptors or whatever, so there's some predictability to their pathing for a lot of junglers, but they all should be relatively equal clear time, if done on an optimal champion, and equal rewards. Like, the whole point of having Krug be worth a lot more is pretty dumb. Like, the reason they did that is they didn't want bot lane to poach it. If you remember back in the day, bot lane used to just take the golem, so they hit level 2 first, and it gave a huge advantage to the support and the AD carry for the bottom lane, rather than the jungler. But now it's the jungler. So they made Krugs really difficult so that bot lane wouldn't get an advantage off of that. But I think there's a more elegant way to do that, probably. So I think that they do have the Krug spawn a little bit later also for the same reason, so that someone can clear red first and then do Krugs. And I think that's fine. So maybe like power down the Krugs a little bit so they don't take as long to clear, but also take some rewards off of them. We've also added respawn timers. Oh, for every camp. Okay, so now you see the respawns on all of the camps. I like that a lot, especially as the support that's warding deep into the jungle a lot. I really want to know like what their timers are, so I think that's super helpful. I really hope they do that for Scuttle. I think... No, they have it on Scuttle, but they don't have a ping for Scuttle like they do for like red buff and things like that. So they have the timer for Scuttle, the gray or gold or whatever, but allow it to be pinged. So put a little ping thing in the tab so that people can ping Scuttle is what I would like. But anyways. Okay, top lane influence. For high stakes solo lane, top hasn't been able to translate into a win into effective mid and late game carry for their team, particularly at higher levels of play. Combined with this preseason's increased focus on elemental drakes, drawing the fight to bot lane, give top laners better opportunities. We're increasing base minion XP slightly so solo laners level a bit faster, and reducing the amount of bonus XP when allies share XP so that bot levels more slowly. Additionally, to balance out the map objectives a bit, we're spawning Rift Herald earlier in the game and allowing it to respawn once if she's killed. Okay, now people are asking me all the time about this on stream. What do you think about bot lane getting hit? What do you think about bot lane getting hit? Well, the answer is a lot of this is very, very contextual, okay? Because, on the surface, just the one single line there, top solo lane's getting more XP, bot lane getting less. Yes, that sounds bad, because I think that bot lane is the weakest lane right now overall. I don't think many people would argue with that in solo queue. I think that mid and jungle are the two most powerful ones. I do think that top is weaker than mid and jungle, but bot lane together are probably stronger than top, but each one of those individual roles feels really weak. And the main reason I've talked about this on the channel for the weakness, there's a couple of things. Number one is just the meta right now. People are playing really bad early game AD carries. So you're playing Kai'Sa with tier, which is terrible in the early game. Not going to debate it here. I've explained it a million times. Watch my AD carry tier list. It's just bad. You don't have as much power early. Yes, it is nice if you are on time. You get your transformation at Man Immune. You pick up your Gensus on time. Great, perfect. Scenario. That's how you draw it up. It's perfect. But what happens most of the time is you have to back and you come back with a pickaxe when they have a BF sword. People that aren't familiar with the build are going to come back with a tier when they have a BF sword. Either way, you're down a ton of power, and you're just not going to be able to fight early. You're not going to be able to fight the other bot laner if they are playing someone who gets a BF sword, but you're also not going to be able to fight the jungler. So you're not going to be able to do anything about the Kha'Zix or the Jarvan or the Xin Zhao or just anybody who comes down there to gank you because you're going to be underleveled. Like right now, if a jungler wants to, they can take their buff, and some junglers can, and come down there and kill you before you're even level 2. They're level 2 while you're level 1. So like Twitch can clear his red and then come down there invisible and gank you at level 1, and there's basically nothing you can do about it unless you're literally standing at your tower and just giving up the entire wave. Like, it's going to be almost impossible if they have any kind of CC in their lane at all. Even if the support just like flash ignites you and Twitch shows up with red buff, you're probably going to die. I mean, if you take like your jump or your blink or something level 1 with Ezreal or Tristana, maybe you get away. But most of the time, it's just impossible because you're like, you haven't even cleared your first wave yet, and they're showing up level 2 with red buff. So I think that's already really tough on bottom, combined with the fact that, like I said, Kai'Sa, you've got Ezreal tier, which is really weak in the early game. You've got people are still playing Vayne for some reason, who's really weak in the early game. So yeah, there are some Dravens out there, there are still some Jins and things like that, but a lot of the most popular champs are going to be these weak lane champs. Now, that's something that people are opting into. There it is, your Kai'Sa, your Ezreal. Now, Ashe is a little bit stronger early game, and she's getting more popularity. So some of these people are starting to realize, wow, I don't want to play these tier champions because they have an abysmal win rate. So more people are going to Ashe, Caitlyn, Lucian, who are going to be a lot better early. So, part of that's just meta-related, but part of it's also just sort of objective-related. We already talked about bot lane being kind of unfair, how you get ganked when they have red buff bottom. And the jungler can just camp you with no consequences. That's another thing that I don't see mentioned here, but sort of changing jungle experience to where you get punished a lot harder for 24/7 ganking. Because right now, with the rubber banding effect, if you're a Xin Zhao, you can almost literally just sit bottom the entire game, just let your camp sit there, let the enemy jungler get ahead by a little bit, and then eventually on your 5th gank bottom, you manage to double kill, get a couple of plates, go back, and now, because the enemy jungler is ahead of you in levels, then when you go back and you clear your camps, then you're going to get bonus experience. You're going to get bonus gold, I believe. You get lots of bonuses for going back if you're behind. So if you just get a little bit behind the enemy jungler and you're making like massive differences in the lane, you're like winning lanes for people, and you're falling a little behind in that jungle, it's actually really good for you because then you get all the catch-up experience in gold and you put your bot lane really far ahead, so there's no way they can lose. And that means you're going to get dragons, you're going to get rift, all of this other stuff. So it's just really weird where it's like you just completely can sacrifice your jungle and just hard camp and probably be okay. I think you should get punished for that. I think if you try to gank bottom like twice in a row and you're just basically sitting on there for 1 minute and the enemy like jungler takes your entire top side of your jungle, that should be about the equivalent, of a kill, right? If they take like 2 camps from you off of a gank, it should hurt. Like, you should be down significantly by that point. But that's just not the case right now because of the rubber banding and just how much kills are worth, because you get the kills and you get the plates and you have the potential to get dragons in the bot lane. So there's just like so much incentive to camp bottom really hard because multiple kills, plates, scuttle, dragon, all this stuff is really strong. So that's the problem. That's why I think bot lane is really weak. And they're saying that top lane doesn't have a lot of influence. Well, a lot of that is because nobody cares about top for the first like 30 minutes of the game most of the time. Now that is changing with a few champions, right? You've got your Garen, who's super OP. I think they're nerfing him on the next patch. Then you still have a few champions like Darius and whatever, but like the big reason why top feels like it doesn't have as much impact is because you can't roam a lot of times as top. Like it's plain and simple. Unless you are playing, if you're running teleport and you have really smart teleport usage, yeah, you can make really good plays. Or if you're playing something like Shin, who can TP bot with his ult, you're going to have some extra influence. But by and large, it's a 1v1 lane, and right now, League of Legends is just not won by 1v1s a lot of times. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, it's just whichever team gets together, has better macro, and just zergs around the map and just gangs up on weak people. That's basically what it is, and usually that's bot lane. So, just going bot lane and just sitting on that Jinx over and over again as Echo mid, tag teaming them with your Kha'Zix jungle. You just push in your weak laner in mid lane. Just push them in, just go bottom, dive the towers, hard camp them, blow all your summoners, doesn't matter. Do whatever you want, get the double kill, take some plates, take a dragon, game's done. That's how it is. So you don't even have to fight. Like, the best mid laners don't even really fight that much most of the time. You just ignore it and just go bottom as fast as you can, like, as often as you can, and you win the game. And so the problem is top can't do that. Top can't very easily go bottom. And they could rotate mid, but the problem is mid's always bottom. So, I'm saying that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but that's for real. Like, that's the best strategy right now in solo queue. It's just a 4-man gank bottom over and over again and keep diving him. Because, like, the Kai'Sa's not, what's she going to hit you back with her tier? There's just, you can't fight. You can't keep up with that in the bot lane most of the time. So, and that's the problem with top lane. Is like, okay, you can go 3-0 top lane, but if your bot lane is 0-6 because they've camped him and killed him 3 times, and they take all these plates and dragon, and you're just sitting up top and you're up like 15 CS and 3 kills, you just don't matter. Like, that's it most of the time. Now, if you play hyper carry top laners like a Riven or a Fiora or something like that, if you can get to split pushing, then you can have a big impact later on in the game. The problem is games are too fast. So if they slow down games, I think that things like Riven, like Fiora, could be better. Now, they're helping this out a little bit with allowing Rift Herald to spawn top. So maybe people will go top and try to go for a double Rift instead of going bottom for dragons. But you have a huge incentive to try to get 4 dragons now, too. So the jury's out on that. But being able to get 2 Rifts and take down multiple towers twice, potentially, can be really strong. So I think that is a better way to go about it rather than just giving solo laners more experience. Because you know what this is also going to do? It's going to give mid lane a lot of experience. You know what the best role is right now? Probably mid lane. So this is like helping the overall best role while you're also hurting your worst role and helping your like mid-range role. Like, most people would probably consider top like maybe 3rd or 4th in terms of influence, depending on if you put the support over them or not. Some people you could legit put the support in terms of influence over some top laners. I think ADC is definitely the bottom in a lot of games as far as like influence on the game. At least in Platinum Elo right now. Platinum, low diamond, that type of stuff. So, in a vacuum, yeah, I don't like this as much that they're changing the experience. But if they are changing the jungle pathing so that people don't always camp bottom or they get hard punished for camping bottom, if they are making rifts spawn more often so that people have a good reason to go top, or so you can at least trade. So if your Garen has priority top lane and your jungler's on the top side of the map, they see a gank bottom, and then they know the enemy's going to go for dragon, now they can get rift. I hope they make Rift easier to kill so that it doesn't take like 5 years to kill or solo. Because like, it's ridiculous. The dragon, a lot of champions can solo it by themselves at level 4, depending on which dragon it is. But a lot of junglers can solo it level 4. Whereas Rift, you can solo it, but it's going to take you like 3 or 4 times the time to do it. So by the time you end up taking Rift, the enemy jungler could have ganked like 3 times in that duration. So I hope they make it easier to kill as well. Anyways. So overall, looks like it's probably net bad for bottom, but it could be good. Now, here's something that could change it up a little bit, though. These other things are going to be really good for bot lane as well. So stay tuned. It's not the end of the world for bot. This is going to be a longer video. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of stuff here. I wanted to talk about it faster, but let's be real. There's just so much stuff, and I know people want to hear about it. I guess I could have split it into multiple videos, but whatever. Okay, the support item. So what they're doing is they are... you have different quest rewards, but you don't have to pay money to upgrade. That is huge. That is a massive, massive buff to supports. Because right now, a lot of times you have to pay 450 gold to upgrade to tier 2, And in most games, with most support items, other than the Relic Shield, you never upgrade it to tier 3. And so you just never get that 4th ward. Now you eventually do get that upgrade for free. So, 4 ward capacity. Oh, you don't get any more gold generation, though. I didn't notice that. So you get a major stats upgrade, but it caps your gold. Ooh. I wonder at what point that happens, though. So, looks like more gold early game, but less gold late game off this item. And they're removing the coin version, which, like, coin will give you in some games, you know, if it's like a 30-minute, 40-minute game, you know, you can have over 2,000 gold off a coin. So, that's a pretty big hit to your gold at the end of the game. But I'll take it. If it's early game, it's going to be a lot better. And it's going to be better for champions that don't scale as well with gold. So, like, your Broms, your Toms, a lot of your tanks just don't perform as well with gold as like your Sonas, your Jannas, that type of stuff, because they don't have the shielding and healing stat, the plus shielding and healing, which is one of the highest scaling stats in the game. I've talked about that in the past. I don't have time to go into all that right now, but trust me, Sona and Janna, Soraka, stuff like that scale super hard with gold, and they just blow things like Braum and Tom out of the water, which is why historically a non-pro play in ELOs where the support gets a lot of gold, they're going to be like in the mid 40s or low 40s win percentage. So I think this is going to be good for a lot of champs that don't need the gold. So a lot of the hard engaged champs, you know, that just have really powerful abilities, like your Threshes, you know, your Leonas, your Nautilus, your Tom, your Braum, all that stuff's going to get a boost off of this, because then they come online earlier. They get to get some of their, you know, 1 or 2 important items early, but then they don't lose out on a lot of the gold later by not taking coin. So that's interesting, but it does give you your item earlier, and it does allow you, it'll help out like your all of your supports too, like your Jannas and your Sonas. I just think late game it's better for the tanks. It might be better for the enchanters in the early game, which is probably fair, because I think that the hard engaged tanks are better early, but the enchanters are better late. So this should find some more middle ground there, because now you can get your Ardent Censer faster, or your Athene's Unholy Grail or whatever a little bit faster to keep up, to compensate for the hooks that are going to be flying your way. But then late game, you're not going to have your, you know, your 3-item death stack as Janna or Sona, where no one can ever win a team fight anymore. So you're not going to feel as worthless if you Braum. So I like it. I think it's good. A lot of people were crying when they first introduced Sightstone. They're like, oh my god, you know, what am I going to do without Sightstone? It's like, well, you basically, what you're going to do is save 800 gold and have more power in the game. So that's what they're doing here. Now you save an additional, what will typically be about 450 gold. So yeah, I think that's really good. That's going to give a lot more power to bot lane early on. Depending on how fast you get those wards activated. Another problem with the jungle ganking is they've nerfed vision so much that it's very difficult to ward all of the gank paths, especially with like the blast plants, the increased mobility on most of the new junglers or reworked junglers. So that's kind of exacerbated the problem. So they don't say what it is, but you get these for free. So I assume it's probably going to be about the same amount of gold. So overall, I think that's pretty solid. This unlocks supports to begin progressing towards their first items without having to spend their first 1,500 gold on completing their economy item. That's true. Nobody gets the tier 3 except for the Relic Shield users, though. But yeah, most people will spend about 900, 950 on their items, though, for sure. So I think that's true. Because what it's 350 plus 450, it's 800. So it'd be 800 for your first gold item. So in most cases, you're saving 800 gold. With the Relic Shield users, by the late game, you're probably saving 1,500 gold. I don't know when you get the completion for the super upgraded one, but maybe at 1,000 gold earned, it's 500 for the first upgrade right now to be eligible for the wards on your first upgrade. So maybe it's 1,000 for the next upgrade. I don't know. Forced, and they're getting rid of coin, and they're giving you a high AD, low HP Spell Thieves item, or a high AP, low HP Spell Thieves item, or a Targon. So basically, you have Relic Shield for AD or AP, and Spell Thieves for AD or AP. Why not just do adaptive damage? Why have separate items for that? There's a stat called adaptive damage, to where they just get it, and whatever kind of damage is most useful, that's what they're going to get. And that's what I would do. So some people were saying, oh my gosh, you know, Rakan's going to be OP, because now it looks like with Targons, you can actually get it with ranged. allowing ranged champions to execute with Targon's passive. So I think that a lot of people are going to go Targons now. Even, I think Enchanters, it depends. Maybe. I mean, depending on how much HP it gives you. The problem with Targons, though, is it doesn't give you the... it doesn't give you the 10% CDR right now at tier 2. So we'll see if they change that or not. But I don't know how people are going to... They say that a new poaching rule significantly reduces gold you get from minions if you're farming them consistently. So hopefully other lanes won't get this. So we'll see if they have an anti-poaching thing. That's one of the big things right now in Pro, and it's been around for a while. You'll have these double gold items bottom, like Garen Yumi right now in Worlds, or like Tarek Sona and things like that. And it just ends up giving so much gold for basically no interaction, which is just too strong. So I think that's a good idea. So overall, pretty big net buff, I think, for supports. So that might compensate some. So yeah, like, if you're down a level, but, you know, if you're level 8 when you're, you know, your mid laner and top laner are level 9 or something like that, then, you know, I think 800 gold could potentially compensate for that. Okay, lethality items. Choices feel limited. We want to make Edge of Night a more attractive option and add a 4th choice. So Duskblade is mostly the same. Ghostblade is also mostly the same. Edge of Night Spell Shield now works like a Banshee's Veil, so it's always up, which is really strong. Then Sanguine Blade is a new lethality item that enables split pushing. Its unique passive grants huge attack speed buff when no other allies are near. Okay, well that's going to be crazy for split pushers like Tryndamere. A few other lethality options. Doubling the number of attractive lethality items significantly increases assassins' ability to tailor their early builds to their matchup or game state, but we don't want to kill their later build variety by letting full lethality become optimal in every game. Okay. Individual items grant fewer stats. Okay, this is a line that I think a lot of people were missing when they're saying assassins are going to be OP. So it says mostly the same, but what they're talking about is how the active, or like how the bonus stuff works. Ghostblade mostly gives you speed. You know, Duskblade mostly gives you the extra on-hit damage. Grant fewer stats, but now feature a 1 and 2 piece bonus that preserves the power spikes of assassins for the first big purchases. So, wait, there's a 1 item buff? Why would you have a buff on a single item? Like, what's the point in having a 1 item set? I thought when they said it had a 1 set and a 2 piece set, which means you had multiple items. Okay, so what I hope this is doing, I'm not sure. It's ambiguous because I don't know what items grant fewer stats. I don't know what that means. But, like, what I hope they're doing is single item is weaker, specifically Duskblade, and then I think that 2 items should be stronger. Because right now assassins kind of fall off a little bit late if they're not super fed. So I like the idea of giving them a bit more power later with multiple options. But I don't want them to just get like, you know, Duskblade and just murder everybody. So I'm hoping that they nerf the lethality by like maybe 3 or 4 per item. Just bring that down a little bit, or bring down the raw AD, make it a, like a, I think it's 55 AD right now, maybe make it like 50 or 45 might be a little much. Just like lower the raw AD on it. Oh, is she vaping? Are you vaping, right? Huh. She's got this hose thing she likes to breathe into. Or he says, no, vaping's going to be illegal by the time I can vape. They're already figuring out it causes cancer in like 3 years. So yeah, I hope this nerfs single item power spike assassins and makes them more viable later. That would also be a buff to bot lane if they did that, by the way. And 80 carries. So once again, you know, if the Zed or the Talon doesn't like completely one-shot your 80 carry, like off of 1 item, would you trade that for being down a little bit in experience? I probably would. So I think this could be a buff to bot lane, depending on how it shakes out. We don't know exact numbers, but I think it could be good. Other items, so the removing Spear of Shojin. I don't like removing items in general. Like, can't they rework it or just like just lower the stats? If it's something really cool, like the where you can cast abilities a lot more, I like that. I think that's a really cool item. It's just like, just get rid of some stats on it. Just make people pay a high price for something that's that cool. Something that's that powerful. Maybe just knock off 10 AD off of it. See what happens. I don't know. Knock off CDR. If it's already giving, knock off 10% CDR. I think it gives 20. Knock off like 10% CDR and 10 AD or something. I mean, just like nerf the hell out of it. See what happens. And then maybe some people want it. Maybe Renekton still wants it. Maybe Jack still wants it, but now they're paying a much higher price. Just leave it in the game in a weaker state. Just make it situational. I mean, they did that with ZZ Rot Portal. They just nerfed the hell out of it a couple of seasons ago, left it around. Sometimes people still get it. I mean, Omewrecker's never been viable, basically. And they leave that item around. So I just don't like it. I don't like how they got rid of Banner either, because those are like... Banner's a very unique effect that was really cool for supports until they changed the way that Baron works. Like, the problem was bannered up Baron minions were just too strong. And so I think just if something has Baron on it, you can't banner it. Just like you can't banner super minions. I think that finding ways to play around Banner, I really like the item. I like the idea of macro items. So that you have to choose, especially if it's gated as a support. They could have just, once again, nerfed the hell out of the stats on that item and just said, hey, if you want the banner effect, you're paying a lot for it. So we're going to take away 10 armor and 10 magic resist on this item. So I wish there were more unique type of items, not just like raw stats. Just stuff that does cool things that are different. ZZ Rot, definitely different. Banner, different. Shojin, different, right? We don't need more stuff that's just like, okay, here's like an Infinity Edge, or here's a Bloodthirster, or whatever, right? Like, here's 3 different versions of like Proto Belt. Like you got Proto Belt, you got GLP, you got Ludens. I mean, what really is the difference between like Ludens and GLP at the end of the day? They're so close. Like, GLP adds a slow. Or just like Rod of the Ages, it's like, okay, you got Rod of the Ages, yeah, it gives you some health instead of Luden's like extra mana, and it's just like all these items are so close in like what they do and just giving out basically just stats. I mean, GLP does enable some interesting stuff with like the freeze ray or whatever, but I don't know. I would just rather keep unique items like Shojin and just nerf them and just see, if people still use them as niche items instead of being overpowered go-to items. Small improvements. Okay, we don't know. All right, final couple of things here, and then we'll be done. Get the kitty. Get her. Can you get her? Oh, you missed her. Oh, is that a peanut butter honey? You got a peanut butter honey, Rory? Good job. Oh, she says yummy. Now she wants to eat something, huh? Because she wants her peanut butter honey. Is that right, Lauren? You want to come over here and sit with Dad? Okay, come on.
Ice cream. So, that's something. For dinner, she had couch and ice cream.
Nice. Sounds good. Okay. So the Keystone changes. This is great. I really, really love this. This is going to shake up the meta quite a bit. So they're basically getting rid of Conqueror. Or they're not getting rid of it. They're turning it into the old school Fervor battle, which I really like. Removing the true damage conversion into stacking adaptive force. Awesome. Because true damage is toxic. The thing is, it's not just anti-tank. It's anti-everything. True damage is just too good at everything. Like, if you want anti-tank, armor penetration. Or if you want anti-tank, percentage max health. True damage is not anti-tank. It's good against tanks, but it's also anti-squishy. It's just anti-game. It's OP. Isn't that right, Rory? Is it OP a little bit? Can you say OP? You want to go hang out with Mommy? Is that what you're saying? Mom. Okay, go get her. Oh, you want your breather?
No, she's got peanut butter all over her face.
Okay. But yeah, so I love it. I love this change. That rune is just so toxic. And that's finally going to allow tanks to start coming back into the meta more. They're already kind of coming back. You're seeing some Mundo. You're seeing some Zac. You're seeing some Ornn come back in sometimes. So I like it. I'm all aboard. Tanks are very good for bot lane as well, so keep that in mind. Whenever tanks are good, that means you need the AD carry to be relevant. Tanks also slow down the games a lot because you can't just assassinate and murder tanks. Assassins actually have to think carefully about who they're targeting. They can't just roll their hand across the keyboard and kill anybody. They have to target very specific people. Rory, look. Mommy's got something in there for you. Look. She might have more peanut butter and honey. She might have something else. Let's go see what she's got.
More peanut butter honey.
She wants more peanut butter and honey. So yeah, it slows down the game. It helps to counter assassins. You need some of these champions like Vayne. That's when those are metas where Vayne's actually relevant, right? Where you need her to kill, that Ornn. When you need her true damage, right? When it's a specific champion that you need, or Kai'Sa's percentage health or whatever. That makes these champions that are a lot weaker early a lot more relevant later because you need them later because the game's going to go longer than 20 minutes. So I really like it. Bringing tanks back. If tanks are too strong, they can do things like buff Blade the Ruined King. They can buff specific tank breaker champions, give Vayne another percentage or two on her Silver Bolt, something like that. I just think that trying to solve tanks with Conquer was a terrible idea because it's just too good against everybody else. A bunch of squishies as well. So, great idea. Shout out to them. And this is still going to allow people that want to do consistent, sustained damage in fights to do that. So, especially people that just scale off of raw AD, someone like Darius. There could be a lot of other champions like Jhin, Draven. They're going to like if Conquer stacks up like it used to and just gives you a lot more raw AD. I think that'll be good. So yeah, overall, I think it's a great move. Very healthy for the game. Kleptomancy. Generate lots of gold in uneven matchup. We're pulling power out of the farm gold off the enemy pattern and pushing more into early game elixir drops. I don't know what that means. I wish they would not put things in quotes and give me actual, a real sentence. Like saying we're lowering the amount of gold bags that drop and we're increasing the amount of elixirs. That's what it sounds like. That might kill Kleptomancy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I do think that is a huge advantage in certain matchups. Getting an extra 500,000 gold or something can be a bit too strong, especially when you're getting other stuff on top of it, like potions and just all kinds of other crap. It's a really fun rune, but yeah, I think it should be more based on the items that you get and not based on raw gold. Although those elixirs can be pretty OP potentially too, but I guess it gives you windows of power where you can trade and stuff like that. So maybe I don't know what. Maybe they could add more. I don't know, in the mid game. I don't know, but I like the idea of taking away gold, even if they need to power up some of the other drops, just so that you're having to actually use the items and not just getting raw gold off of it. Then finally, Aftershock. Yeah, no crap. Aftershock is good on squishy champs. You know what? When Aftershock was initially released, it was supposed to be good on tanks. It was a scaling rune. This will be the last thing that we go to. I just want to show you this because they've gone 180 on this, and I've been saying this the entire time, and a lot of people have been saying this too. Why did you ever change it to begin with? They were afraid of tanks, but at the same time, tanks used to be, Conquer could deal with tanks. Immobilizing champion grants 20 armor, 20 magic resistance, scales with 30%. After the duration, you deal extra damage. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Good. But now, was it based on health? Oh, it does damage based on your percentage max health. Okay. Damage reduced. And it scales with AD, AP, and health. This is where they goofed up. Why? Base resistance. So they removed the scaling on it. Added in base of 70 per. That's so insane. 70 armor and magic resist, by the way, early game, is like 2,600 gold worth of stats. It's insane. It's over 2,500 gold. So that's crazy. Cooldown was increased, and then here they gave it X. They lowered the amount here. There's a cap here. It's 20 to something based on bonus armor. They gave back a certain percentage of resistances, and now they're just going all the way back, and they're saying, you know what? Let's just get rid of that base, lowering the flat and buffing the percentage to tanks. Good. That's what it should do. Like, it should be something that tanks use to be more tanky over time to compensate for the fact that, other people are going to be getting penetration and things like that. So the combination of removing Conquer and changing Aftershock to be more favorable for tanks, that might be a little bit too much in the tank direction. But once again, I think they could just buff something like Blade of the Rune King to do like more percentage max health damage, or buff certain tank breakers, or just buff some of the other anti-tank things in the game, right? Like stuff that does percentage damage, those types of champions that are supposed to be tank breakers. Just buff all of those up. So, I like the idea. I like the changes. And so, once again, that could help out people bottom. Now, that's going to hurt certain, like, in champions bottom. Certain hard engaged champions specifically, like your Leonas, your Nautiluses, your Pikes, a lot of that stuff. Things like Lux that still get it occasionally. I think it's going to hurt those champs. But those champs are, like, very dominant right now as the hard engage. And right now, there's just really, in the early game, there's not really a penalty. And they're just rolling over a lot of the enchanters. Janna's still doing all right, but they're just rolling over a lot of the other enchanters because they're just impossible to kill early with Aftershock, and they don't get punished as much for bad engages, because they have that rune. Especially with like the buff they did to Leona's W. I mean, she's just like impossible to kill early game when she has her W up and Aftershock. She just might as well be invulnerable. So, I like it. I like the idea. I like the changes. I think that will make, some enchanters, bring some enchanters and some AP champs back into the fold. I still think that champions like Nautilus and Leona and, definitely things like Rakan will still be viable with those changes. So, overall, I like it. I think it's solid. I think the changes overall are solid. So, keep in mind, when... especially on my channel, I know a lot of people play bot lane. Yes, they are lowering the experience, right? That sounds bad. But if they're nerfing assassins, if they're buffing tanks significantly, then that's going to help you out. If they are trying to get people to hang out on the top side of the map more by increasing jungle pathing diversity and Rift Herald, all of those could be net positive for ADCs and support. So let's wait. Let's see the numbers. Let's not grab our pitchforks yet. I think overall this could be a good thing. I mean, this sounds like, because remember in Season 7, bot lane was super powerful. No other lane really mattered in the Ardent Sensor meta. And another key defining trait of that meta people forget about was that was a super tank-heavy meta back then. Because enchanters and AD carries are way better against tanks than they are against assassins. And like all throughout Season 9 and the back half of Season 8, it's been an assassin meta, pretty much. Since they gutted a lot of the tanks. Because a lot of people don't like playing against tanks, and a lot of people don't like playing tanks in general. People want kills, people want action. A lot of people don't like watching tanks. I mean, if you're watching a pro game, are you going to want to watch, Ornn versus Malachi top lane, or are you going to want to watch, like, Fiora versus Riven top lane, or something like that? Most people are going to want to watch the Fiora versus Riven, so... Anyways, I understand why they've had tanks in the dumpster for a season, but I like the fact that they're trying to take them out a little bit. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Stay tuned for other content coming out. As soon as more information about this stuff comes out, I'll definitely release it. Come by, check out the stream. Starts around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most nights, I'm very conversational. I try to talk as much as I can while I'm playing the game. We have a super friendly, welcoming community, so we'd love to have you. And then check out the rest of the offerings on the channel as well. We have a ton of guides. I'm going to start adding some more soon. We have coaching sessions, tier lists, just all kinds of stuff. So be sure to check it all out, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.